Speaking about project management, I personally feel that probably it's kind of like a lost art in some ways or the other. In recent industry trends, people are moving more towards agile project management, agile methodology. And a lot of people actually think that maybe it should not be called project anymore. Maybe there's not even like a project manager role in this agile scrum kind of a formation. So what do you think about all these change? Maybe you can have a little bit of perspective. Is project management a dying art?
Absolutely not. I love Agile. I love Scrum. I am a Scrum master. And really, what Agile does is they talk about the gulf of evaluation where the end user describes something and then the technologist hears it differently. They think they both have the common understanding, but then when the product gets created, they find out that there was a gulf of understanding. So, Agile, by doing iterations and bringing the end user into the development process, reduces the risk in building the wrong thing. Love Agile. Project management is still important though, because what I find is when you start scaling Agile, what you end up having is like this black box. And the black box is where you get your user stories and you build them and then you spit the user stories out into a product. But there's nothing that's coordinating the pieces that are on either side of it. So who's out there really understanding what the market's needing and coordinating all the activities around that analysis and around the strategy before we get into the black box that is Scrum? And then who's on the backside, making sure that we've done everything that needs to ensure that this product can go to market or that we can release this new website or whatever the case may be? Who's made sure that we've talked to legal and that we've talked to the marketing team and that we've done all of these things? I think project management can work within the Agile world, but they sit over top of it. You let the Agile teams operate in the way they need to, but the project manager is over the top, making sure that all the other pieces that feed into that team or come out of that team are being effectively managed. So I think that's one piece. And the other thing is the trap that some people fall in when they say they're doing Agile is they quit planning ahead because they're like, oh, well, we don't know what's in next sprint. Well, you're still supposed to have some level of planning and you should be estimating your epics and you should have a general idea or a hope where things will fall. And that's really what a project manager's job is to be really forward thinking. Sometimes you get these companies who've implemented Agile and they become way too narrow down into just what are we doing today or this sprint. So that's the other place where I think project management is still relevant.
Hearing from what you described just now, it seems like to me these days people call it program instead of project. And then since, in any agile team, there's no so-called role as a project manager. So what do you think that people these days in terms of team formation should create as a team? Is it something that someone who can help them to program manage multiple agile teams? Or is it like a specific role inside a team, be it a product manager or maybe some other team members who can actually play this role? So what do you think about all these?
Well, so a couple of things. A program just means a collection of projects. So a project has a defined scope that has a beginning and an end, and a program brings together projects that relate to each other. So for instance, you may be doing a digital transformation in your company. There could be an ERP project, and there could be a sales project, and there could be a data analytics project. And all of those things become the program, the digital transformation program. So program is bigger than a project. You may not need a project manager. You may need a program manager who's managing multiple Scrum teams. That's fine. But if you have multiple projects, I guess somebody's got to be looking at how are we getting from where the project's supposed to start to where it ends? Then you ask, well, could that role be taken on by somebody else? Absolutely. The problem is, or the challenge is, I've worked in places where the product manager or the tech lead acted in the project management role. And what I've seen, and this isn't going to be true across the board, but the risk that companies face is that the skill sets aren't the same. So a tech lead is very focused on what is the technical solution? Is it viable? Is it sustainable? And so they are not really caring about budget that much. They don't care about all the risks and issues, being able to look up and look out, right? They're looking down at the technology or looking at the road that the technology is on, but they're not coming up above that and seeing the whole picture. And then same with product managers. What I find with product managers, some of them are good that can be project managers as well, but some of them have so much to be managing in the relationship with the customers and managing market research and voice of the customer and all of that. Again, doing a project schedule and maintaining risks and issues and all of that just isn't where their skill set lies.
So also, I think one of the latest movement in the technology world, at least as well, people say you should move away from project into products. This is kind of like a dilemma now, right? We've been talking a lot about project manager. What do you think about this movement? What is the underlying reason behind it? Where does project manager actually fit behind all this project to product movement?
Well, I don't know, I guess, where the history of product management started, but I think they're both still important. And here's why. Your product has a product life cycle. You've come up with your idea, you've developed it, you put it out in the market, and then it matures and hopefully doesn't die away, but potentially does. So a product manager should be managing all of that. What does the customer need? How are we going to iterate this product? How are we going to keep it in demand? Like maybe there's a product manager, say, for the iPhone, right? So what are we going to do next for the iPhone? Well, a project manager is focused on a specific outcome at that moment. They're not looking into what's the next iteration of the phone going to be. That's the product manager's job. There is to take the vision of the product manager for this point in time and make it reality for them. So I think they go hand in hand, because if the product manager is like, all right, we're going to hit a release date of September, here's the scope of what that is. Well, now the project manager is going to go out there and coordinate all the activities that have to happen in order to make that release date. And while they're doing that, the product manager can be thinking further out ahead of, okay, well, what's the next thing I'm going to do? How am I going to get feedback on this release? How am I going to make sure that we stay ahead of our competitors, et cetera? So I think they go hand in hand.
I also see it in my own real career is that sometimes, yeah, we do need this kind of role, project manager. Like you mentioned, the skill set is actually different, right? Someone who is coordinating, someone who is planning, looking ahead, managing stakeholders, especially if you have multiple third parties involved as well. So product managers sometimes may not be able to execute all this. And that's why we probably need a project manager inside. I think like what you mentioned in a product lifecycle, we do have milestones and we want to achieve a certain goal, so to speak. So yeah, some product manager probably could play that role, but sometimes when the product is probably slightly complex, more integrations, for example, I think this is where project manager probably can fit in and help the team to execute properly.